My parents texted that they were too tired after my sister's trip and couldn't make it to my award ceremony. I simply replied, "Please rest well." What they didn't know was that I was receiving the $1 million Breakthrough Award, and by the next morning my speech was everywhere. By noon, my parents were calling nonstop panicking as reporters asked why their seats were the only ones left empty. My name is Claire Bailey, and last month my parents texted me that they were too tired after my sister's trip to Bali to attend my awards ceremony. I simply replied, "Rest well." What they didn't know was that I was receiving the $1 million Breakthrough Prize, and the next morning my speech was everywhere. By noon, my parents were calling nonstop panicking as reporters asked why their seats were the only ones left empty. Have you ever been dismissed by your own family until your success made them realize what they'd lost? Let me know where you're watching from, and stay with me because what happened next changed everything. When I think of my childhood, what I remember most isn't laughter or chaos, but the silence that followed every celebration that wasn't mine. We grew up in Boise, Idaho, in a house where attention was a currency, and I was always broke. My sister Olivia was 2 years younger and a professional TikToker before she even knew it was a job. She was loud, bright, and endlessly charming. She was the main event. I was the quiet one, the scientist, the afterthought. I remember my 9th grade science fair. I was 14. I had spent 3 months coding a predictive model for local weather patterns. When they called my name for first place, I remember my heart stopping. I looked out at the rows of folding chairs in the gymnasium, searching for my parents, Gregory and Karen. The seats I had saved for them were empty. I found out later they'd left 30 minutes before my category was announced. They had to rush Olivia downtown for a photo shoot. It was her first ever sponsored Instagram post for a local clothing boutique. When I got home, the trophy felt heavy and useless in my hands. My mom, Karen, didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, that's nice, honey," she said, scrolling. "Did you see? Olivia's post already has 400 likes. That pattern never changed. It just got louder." I'd be at the dinner table at 20, trying to explain a small breakthrough I'd made in the lab, a new way to analyze genetic markers. I'd be saying, "And if this model holds, it could help us." And my mom would just smile and cut me off. "That's great, sweetie, Gregory. Look, Olivia, show your father that video from your Bali trip." And just like that, I was invisible. My breakthrough was erased, replaced by a 10-second clip of my sister dancing on a beach. You see, it wasn't active cruelty. That would have been easier to fight. It was something softer and far more dangerous. There's a psychological concept for this, the normalization of cruelty. It doesn't start with malice. It starts with small preferences. My parents decided early on that Olivia was the fragile one, the creative one, the one who needed the attention. I was the smart one, the independent one, the one who would be fine. That small preference, repeated every day for 20 years, slowly calcified into a family rule. Olivia's wants became urgent, while my achievements became background noise. They weren't ignoring me on purpose. They had simply practiced not seeing me for so long that they became professionals at it. They had normalized the merciless until it just felt like normal life. And I had normalized the pain until it just felt like silence. I was 23 when the email arrived. It was late, almost midnight in the lab. The only sound was the hum of the sequencers and the soft clicking of my keyboard. I was analyzing genomic data, looking for the tiny biomarkers for Alzheimer's that everyone else insisted weren't there. Then the notification popped up. Subject: a message from the Breakthrough Prize Foundation. My heart stopped. I clicked it. "Dear Miss Bailey, after careful review of your research, It is our profound honor to name you this year's recipient of the Breakthrough Prize in Life Sciences and the accompanying $1 million award. $1 million. I stared at the screen, the words blurring. I read the email 3 times, convinced it was a mistake, but it was real. Everything I had worked for, every late night in the lab, every family dinner I'd sat through in silence, it all led to this. My first instinct, even after everything, was to call home. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking. I dialed Mom. It rang once, twice, and went to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Karen." I hung up before the beep. It was fine, I told myself. It was late. They were probably asleep. Right as I thought it, my phone lit up with a group text from Mom. "Just landed from Bali. So tired. But our darling Olivia really needed this getaway. What amazing videos. We're all exhausted, so we'll be resting for the next few weeks. Won't be attending any events, lol." I looked at my computer screen. The email that said $1 million. I looked at my phone. The text that said, "So tired." I had sent them the invitation to the gala 3 weeks ago. I had told them it was the most important night of my career. They hadn't just declined, they had forgotten. You might ask, why didn't you scream? Why didn't you call back and rage at them? Why didn't you fight? Here's the truth. When you grow up in an emotional prison that has no bars, you don't learn how to break down the prison that has no bars. Door. You learn how to live quietly within the walls. My silence wasn't weakness. It was a survival skill. I had learned that my anger didn't lead to apologies. It led to being called dramatic or too sensitive. My pain was an inconvenience. So I learned to stop showing it. I built a fortress inside myself. My silence was my only power, my only armor. And I was tired of fighting battles I would never win. I picked up my phone. I looked at the $1 million email. I looked at their text, and I typed my reply. Rest well. Then I muted the family group chat. I opened my laptop and booked one last-minute flight to San Francisco. I would go alone. The Breakthrough Prize Gala in San Francisco felt like another planet. It wasn't just fancy, it was intelligent. Nobel laureates mingled with tech billionaires, and the air buzzed with conversations about astrophysics and genetic engineering. I felt more at home here in a rented dress I couldn't afford than I ever had in my parents' living room. My mentor, Dr. Melanie, was at my side. She had flown in on her own dime. "You realize," she whispered, her eyes twinkling, "you're the youngest person in this room by about 2 decades. And you're the one getting the check." A host guided us to our table. It was front and center, 4 seats, 1 for me, 1 for Dr. Melanie, and 2 empty ones. 2 pristine white place cards gleamed under the chandeliers, printed in elegant script Karen Bailey and Gregory Bailey. My stomach tightened. They had confirmed their attendance 3 weeks ago, before the exhaustion from Bali. Dr. Melanie saw me looking. She started to say something, but I held up a hand. I was done feeling hurt. I was done being invisible. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the copy of my doctoral thesis, the one that was 200 pages long, bound in hard blue leather. The one I'd sent them a copy of, which I knew was still sitting unopened on their coffee table. Slowly, deliberately, I stood up and placed my thesis on my father's empty chair. It fit perfectly. My work, my achievement, would take the seat they had abandoned. "Doctor?" Melanie stared at me for a second, and then a slow smile spread across her face. "Well played, Bailey. Well played." When my name was called, the applause felt like thunder. Receiving the Breakthrough Prize in Life Sciences for her revolutionary models in Alzheimer's gene marker identification, Miss Claire Bailey. I walked to the stage. The check they handed me was frankly absurd. $1 million. I stepped up to the podium, looking out at the sea of brilliant minds, and then directly into the lens of the broadcast camera I knew was streaming worldwide. "Thank you," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Thank you to the foundation. And thank you to my mentor, Dr. Melanie, who taught me that a good hypothesis is just a question no one else was brave enough to ask." I looked at her. "You showed up for me every single day. You saw potential when I was just a student with a crazy idea. Thank you." I paused, then turned back to the camera. We talk a lot about breakthroughs, but breakthroughs don't happen in a vacuum. They happen because of persistence. They happen because of support. They happen because someone, somewhere, shows up. So tonight, I want to dedicate this award to those who show up, to the mentors who stay late, to the colleagues who share their data, to the friends who listen. I glanced toward my table. The cameras followed my gaze. "And I also want to dedicate this," I said, my voice softening to the empty chairs. A hush fell over the room. Because the empty chairs teach us something too. They teach us how to show up for ourselves. They teach us that our value isn't based on who is sitting in the audience. It's based on the work we do when no one is watching. The camera zoomed in just as I'd hoped it would, landing on my table. It framed Dr. Melanie smiling through her tears. And right next to her, an empty chair with my blue leather thesis sitting right in the center. Thank you. The next morning, I woke up not to my alarm, but to the sound of my phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. It hadn't stopped for hours. I picked it up, my eyes blurry, and saw a cascade of notifications. Texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Emails from strangers. Dozens of social media tags from people I'd never met. My speech was everywhere. They weren't just sharing the video clip. They were sharing the image, the one the broadcast camera had caught. Me on stage looking out, and in the foreground, my advisor, Dr. Melanie, sitting next to the empty chair where I had placed my bound thesis. The headlines were ruthless. The $1 Million Scientist and the Empty Chair. Breakthrough Prize winner's speech on showing up goes viral as family skips ceremony. Genius researcher dedicates prize to the empty chairs while family vacations. It was my private pain now, a public spectacle. I should have felt horrified. I should have felt guilty. But as I read the comments, I felt seen. Thousands of people were sharing their own stories. I'm the invisible child, too. My family skipped my PhD defense for my brother's baseball game. This speech is for all of us who had to build our own seat. I was still trying to process the scale of it when an unknown number from San Francisco flashed on my screen. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another reporter. But something told me to answer. "Claire Bailey," a woman's voice said, professional, sharp. "This is Claire. My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm a managing partner at Synthesis Capital. I saw your speech last night." My heart stopped. Synthesis Capital was one of the biggest biotech VC funds in the world. "Oh," I said, my voice small. "Thank you for watching." "Don't thank me," she said, and I could hear a smile in her voice. "Your research on genomic markers is impressive. We've been following your papers, but your speech, your poise, under that kind of pressure, that's what made me call." I sat up, pulling the covers around me. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean that science is only half of it. The other half is leadership. And you just showed the world you have it. We'd like to fund your startup." I couldn't speak. "We're prepared to offer a $5 million seed round to get your research out of the lab and into development." $5 million. I was clutching the phone trying to form words when my other phone, my personal one, started ringing. I looked at the screen. My mother. "Miss Vance," I said, my voice shaking. "Can you hold for just 1 second?" I muted the call, staring at my mother's name, flashing on my personal phone. I let it go to voicemail. A text immediately popped up from Karen. "Claire, why didn't you tell me? $1 million. Reporters are calling the house. They're asking why we weren't there." I clicked back to the VC call. "I'm so sorry, Miss Vance. I'm here. Please call me Eleanor. Now, about our offer." My personal phone rang again. This time, Dad. I declined it. A new text this time from Gregory. "You made us look terrible. You have to fix this. Call the press and tell them we were sick. This is humiliating." I took a deep breath, trying to focus on Eleanor's voice. "We see a clear path to market within 3 years," she was saying. My phone buzzed again. A text from Olivia. "Everyone is spamming my TikTok. My brand partners are seeing this. You're ruining my brand deals. How could you be so selfish?" I looked at the 3 messages. Humiliating. Selfish. Ruin. They weren't congratulating me. They weren't apologizing. They were angry that my success had become an inconvenience to them. My personal phone rang again. Mom. I looked at the screen. I thought about the science fair. I thought about the empty chairs. I thought about the too tired text. And I felt nothing. Just quiet. I held the $5 million call in one hand and the call from the family who thought I was worthless in the other. I declined my mother's call. I unmuted the call with Eleanor Vance. "I'm sorry about that interruption," I said, my voice suddenly clear and steady. "Now, about the terms, I'd love to hear more." A few days later, I invited them to my apartment. They showed up looking awkward and defensive, like they were walking into an ambush. My apartment is small, simple, a wall of books, a second-hand couch, and my research notes pinned to a corkboard. It's a life I built myself, and I could tell it confused them. It lacked the curated flashiness of Olivia's world. My mother Karen spoke first, wringing her hands. "Claire, we had no idea it was that kind of award. You should have told us it was $1 million. I told you I was nominated for the Breakthrough Prize," I said, my voice calm. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. The prize amount has always been public. "Well, yes, but we just thought it was one of your science things," my father, Gregory, mumbled, staring at my floor. "We didn't know it was a spectacle." "You didn't know it was important," I corrected him, just as quietly. "It's okay. You made your priorities clear." "That's not fair," Karen said, her defensiveness rising. "We were just so tired from Olivia's trip. She needed that break." I looked at them, really looked at them, not as my parents, but as 2 people. "I was 14, I said. They both blinked. "What?" "I was 14 when I won the state science fair. I called you, and you told me you couldn't come because you were taking Olivia to a photo shoot for her first sponsored Instagram post. Do you remember that?" My father looked blank. My mother just stared. "I was 20, I continued, when my first paper was published. I brought it home. I tried to explain what it meant to finally have my work recognized. And you interrupted me, Mom, to ask Olivia to show you the video she took in Bali." "We didn't," Karen started. "I didn't call you here to blame you," I said, cutting her off. "I called you here to tell you the truth. For my whole life, I have been invisible. I've been the quiet, reliable background noise while Olivia was the main event. And I accepted it." I looked at my sister, who had been silent, staring at her own expensive shoes. and you let them. Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. That's not fair. It's not my fault. They paid attention to me. No, I said. It's not. But you liked it. You leaned into it. You knew if you were loud enough, you'd get what you wanted, and I would just disappear. Olivia stood up, her hands clenched. You think it was easy. You think I liked being the fun one. You got to be the smart one. You got to be brilliant and quiet, and everyone just assumed you were fine. You had substance. The room went silent. I had to be loud, she whispered, her voice cracking as tears welled in her eyes. I had to be interesting. I had to go to Bali and take 1,000 pictures, because if I stopped, if I wasn't the fun one, they'd stop looking at me too. She was crying now, ugly, messy tears. I was jealous. I've always been jealous. Everything was so easy for you, Claire. The grades, the awards. You never needed anyone. I needed everyone. My parents looked stunned. They were staring at Olivia as if they'd never seen her before. They had created this monster of need in her and this ghost of independence in me, and they had no idea they'd done either. I let the silence sit for a long time. I let them absorb the wreckage they had created. Finally, I spoke. I don't want an apology, I said. An apology is just a word you say to make yourselves feel better. I want to change. They all looked at me. I am going to continue living my life. I'm starting my company. I'm going to publish my research. I am going to keep being me, and I will continue to invite you. I paused, making sure they heard every word. Whether you show up or not, that is your choice. But I am done waiting for you. I am done holding a seat for people who are too tired to be present in my life. My voice didn't shake. For the first time, I felt the power that $1 million prize was supposed to give me. It wasn't the money. It was the clarity. My parents are trying. It's awkward. They showed up at a small university lecture I gave last week. My dad even asked a question about genomic sequencing. It was the wrong question, but it was a start. The relationship is fragile. It might always be, but it's finally real. Because I stopped waiting for them to give me a seat at their table, and I built my own. If you're listening to this, if you've ever felt like you were on the sidelines of your own life, if you're the one who always remembers, always shows up, while you feel forgotten, this is for you. Your value is not determined by who overlooks you. Your worth is not measured by the invitations you don't receive. You do not need to wait for someone else to celebrate you. You do not need permission to be the main character in your own story. So stop waiting. Stop shrinking. Go build your own table. Build your own company. Write your own speech. And when you get there, look around for the other people who feel like they're at the edge and send them a letter. Tell them I see you. Tell them we've been waiting for you. Have you ever had to be the one to show up for yourself? Share your story in the comments. I read them. And I promise you are not alone.